Hello, good people. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. It is football season. It's over with now, and it is time for me to start doing what I do every year after football season, and that is get back into shape because I always put on my winter fat. And when football season's over, no more big sub and stuff. And my wife is trying to do some different things because, at 58 years old, you got to start thinking really about your health. It really should start even sooner. So pho is one of those things that my wife absolutely positively loves. We went to a pho restaurant last night and spent like $40 on some pho and things like that. So we're going to actually try and make some authentic pho. Yeah. So I've got a recipe that we're going to try, and here's what we're going to do. I've done bone broth before, and I think the mistake I made is I just put the bones in there and let it boil, and it gets like a real, just kind of like a slick on top of it. It makes it taste terrible. Recipe that I've actually read about, and what they do is they're going to boil the bones and stuff for 5 minutes, rinse and scrub it off, and then you're going to recook it with new water. So that's the first thing. Is hopefully that was my mistake before. So I actually have some oxtails because you want to have some bones that have meat on them, and then you want to have some marrow. So we've actually got leg bones that are right here that have, of course, the bone marrow. So that gets in there. We have some brisket. Okay, we're going to put the brisket because you need all these different meats and stuff to give it its flavor. Now, this is where it's going to be interesting to see because what we're going to do is we're going to take the onions, and they take the onions with the skin and everything on it. We take some fresh ginger, we cut it in half, and we're just going to toast it. We actually want to char it. It wants to be a little bit burned so you have that burned taste that's going to cook real slow with it. And here's the other key on here. These are solid spices. This isn't powdered spices and stuff that are going to go in here. We've got our cinnamon sticks, and what's crazy is I was at the Asian market. They had cinnamon sticks that were like bigger than my finger, bigger than my thumb. It was like a tree trunk. We have star anise in here. We have coriander. We have some fresh coriander, and I can't pronounce the other one. The other one is cardamom pods. Cardamom pods. So we're going to take those. We're going to toast those. We got our water boiling right now, so we're going to end up putting in our bones here. We're going to let that boil for 5 minutes, put that in a strainer, strain it, and then, once it's strained, put it back in with a fresh pot of water, and it's going to cook for about 3 hours. Now, that's going to make the basis of the soup. Now, you're going to have, of course, about a pound of brisket that's left. So it's going to slow cook, and so it's going to almost be like chuck roast. Most of the flavor is actually going to come off of it, but there's some recipes that you can use with that brisket to make something else. Now, hopefully, we'll get a really good yield because, it's crazy because bones aren't cheap. This is a good chunk of change here in getting the meats and the bones and stuff like that, but if you think about $14 for an order of pho at the restaurant, if we can get a gallon of this, then, it'll be more than worth it. And it'll definitely be about as fresh as it can be. So I'm going to get these bones put in here. Get all these bones put in here and start the process of getting this stuff cooked. All right, so we've got our bones that have been basically cooked for 5 minutes. We rinsed those off. We put those back in here. We ended up putting our brisket in here. And now we're going to take our pan right here. We're getting that sucker hot. And we're going to take our onions and our garlic, and we're going to basically char them. We're not going to saute them. We're going to char them because we want that char taste to go in there. After that's done, we're going to take our star anise, our coriander, and our cinnamon, and all that stuff. We're going to go ahead and we're going to toast that. And then we're just going to put that all in the pot. And we're going to let it cook down for like 3 hours. And then what we'll do is we'll end up taking out the brisket. We'll save that meat and stuff for other things. We'll pull out the bones, and we'll go ahead and actually rinse out all of the other stuff. Excuse me, not rinse out, excuse me. Strain everything out. And that will end up being our broth. And so then once we have our broth, then it's just a matter of taking some of the brisket. We're going to slice that real thin, and we'll pour the broth over top of it and let it cook on there. And that way you're actually having a true like pho. We'll have some bean sprouts. We'll have some fresh basil, some fresh Thai basil stuff to go in there, and cilantro. We'll get some lime wedges and some mushrooms that we'll put into it. All those fresh vegetables and things like that are great. We got rice noodles. I just kind of like rice. So we actually have some rice that's left over from yesterday that we'll end up doing. So this is a great way to have a really tasty, flavorful soup with all the vegetables and stuff that'll definitely be good at hopefully dropping some of this weight that I have. Okay, so we've been charring our vegetable, or look at that, our ginger. You see that char on there? We're gonna be just putting that stuff in. Look at that, and let that cook just a little bit more. Our onions, see, that's extra flavor. So this is part of where the flavor will come in from this. We put no oil in here. This is just to let it basically burn a little bit. And that char flavor is gonna go in here along with the beef, the bones, and you got basically 3 different textures. You've got the bone marrow that's in this. That's going to, of course, give a different flavor and be really all the nutrients and stuff that you need. Then you've got the oxtails, which gives you a little bit more of the meat, and then you've got, of course, the brisket, which is going to give it a lot more of the flavor. And so you've got the fresh ginger that's getting charred right now that's going to go in here. You've got these onions. You're going to let all this simmer for about 3 hours, and it's looking pretty good right now. Just, my wife is like, ooh, that smells so good. And we haven't even added the seasoning. So once we get finished charring the the ginger here, and I'm surprised there's no garlic. We're going to end up doing the other spices, and then we'll end up adding salt, a little bit of sugar, and some other seasonings to go with it as well. But very basic, very, very basic. All right, so now that we've got our ginger in here, we've got our onions that are all charbroiled, we've had the bones, we've rinsed those out there. That temperature is just at the simmer point. We're gonna let this get real good and hot again, and now we're basically no oil or anything. We're just gonna toast. Oh, can you smell that? Oh, that smells so good. The star anise, the cinnamon, you can smell the caraway seeds and stuff. We're basically gonna just put this in the pan and just kind of toast it. We're gonna add it to that, and then we can go do some other stuff for a few hours. There we go. Just gonna let that get good and toasted and things. We'll add that to the soup, and that's gonna be it. All right, so now that we've got our ginger in here, we've got our onions that are all charbroiled, we've had the bones, we've rinsed those out there. That temperature is just at the simmer point. We're gonna let this get real good and hot again, and now we're basically no oil or anything. We're just gonna toast. Oh, can you smell that? Oh, that smells so good. The star anise, the cinnamon, you can smell the caraway seeds and stuff. We're basically gonna just put this in the pan and just kind of toast it. We're gonna add it to that, and then we can go do some other stuff for a few hours. There we go. Just gonna let that get good and toasted and things. We'll add that to the soup, and that's gonna be it. All right, so this has actually been about 4.5 hours. I actually had to go out and run some errands, but I have to tell you that this smells amazing. You can smell the coriander and the cinnamon sticks, the ginger. It's so aromatic. So now what we're gonna do, you can see it's all cooked down in here. We can pull out the look at that. Oh, the meat is nice and tender. Oh, look at that. So we can pull out the meat here, and we're going to be able to use that for some other cooking in there. We've got a bunch of those in here. It might be easier after I pour it out. But basically we're going to take all of this and we're going to dump it out and save the broth, and then we're going to let it cook for the broth for about 40 minutes more, and then it's going to be done. I tell you what, I'm going to dump it out and I'm going to get the meat. Look at this. Oh, look at the meat right there. Definitely took a lot of the taste out of it, but you'll be able to use that for other stuff. Just another piece of it. I cut it up in smaller pieces so I would get more of the flavor out of it. But we'll be able to get that out when we dump it. So let's go dump it. Oh wow, this smells so good. Oh wow. You can see we have literally filled that pot all the way up. And we'll get our chunks of meat, our chunks of the brisket out, and save that. And I believe that's it. You can see the bone marrow has cooked literally out of it. Oh man. Still a little bit more broth left in there. Now we're going to take the broth that's left, and we're going to double check and make sure we've got enough salt in there and fish sauce. And look at all that. Oh. Okay, on to the next step.